What are we doing? Homer, Iliad and Odyssey. This is 2 books. Tell me about it. Here's a clear, engaging overview of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, what they were, their plots, characters, themes, and why they matter. Traditionally considered an 8th century BC Greek poet, Homer is credited with composing the Iliad and the Odyssey. So it's 2 books, right? The foundational epics of Western literature. Whether he had one person or collective traditions is debated. The Iliad. Which one's important? The Iliad is about Achilles' anger, honor, heroism, and tragedy of war. The Odyssey is about a 10-year journey of Odysseus returning home from jail. So they're connected, right? So are the stories sequels? Are they connected? Yes. Odyssey's the sequel. So I have to read both. The Iliad is events during the war, and Odyssey is events after the war. So how much truth is there? How much truth is there to this story? They contain core of historical truth wrapped in myth, exaggeration, and poetic invention. The real city of Troy existed. Archaeology at Hisarlik in Turkey shows a large fortified Bronze Age city, destroyed multiple times. One destruction layer matches the period of the supposed Trojan War. A real conflict likely happened. Most scholars think a war or series of conflicts between Mycenaean Greeks and the Anatolian cities happened between 1200 BCE. Greek culture reflects genuine Bronze Age customs. Just tell me about it. Give me a summary.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of Great Books in 10 Minutes. By the end of this episode, you will know all that you need about one of the greatest epics of all time, the Iliad. In the epic genre, the Iliad is undoubtedly among the greatest works ever written. It was originally composed in the Old Ionic language, which was one of the main 4 Greek dialects. It is an unparalleled literary achievement that after almost 30 centuries remains unrivaled in the Western canon. The main themes of the Iliad are love, honor, friendship, rivalry, free will, and fate. The Iliad was composed by the Greek writer and musician Homer. Except knowing that he was born sometime around the 8th century BC, everything else that we know about Homer is almost entirely fictionalized. Today, there are 2 major works attributed to Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey. But in antiquity, a large number of other works were believed to be composed by him. Today, however, these claims are not supported by facts, and were not supported by everyone in the ancient world either. As with the multitude of legends surrounding Homer's life, they prove the importance and centrality of a person named Homer that encapsulated the entire Greek culture in his works. So, in a way, we can argue that Homer is the embodiment of ancient Greek culture. He is the memory of ages through which all of the fables and tales of the old world survived and were transferred from one generation to the next. Zeus, the chief of gods and the immortal king of Mount Olympus, held a celebration in honor of the marriage of Peleus and Thetis without inviting Eris, the goddess of chaos. It was in the middle of this feast that Eris arrived uninvited and resentful. Therefore, to sow discord...
Wait a minute, who am I following? Who's the main character? Yes, two. Achilles in the first, and Odysseus. Right. Odyssey.
Among gods, she threw a golden apple into the banquet, on which was written, "For the most beautiful." 3 goddesses demanded the apple: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Zeus, knowing that choosing one over the other 2 will result in more conflict, assigned the task to Paris, Prince of Troy, who had a reputation for being a fair judge among the gods. As each goddess wanted to have the apple, they each showed themselves to Paris in all their beauty and appeared naked before him. Each of them then offered the prince a gift as an incentive in return for the apple. Hera promised him all the kingdoms of Europe and Asia Minor. Athena offered him wisdom in battle, and Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, queen of Sparta, who was already married to King Menelaus. Paris gave the apple to Aphrodite and asked for Helen's love in return. The story has it that when beautiful Helen came to age, every king and nobleman in the Greek...
Too slow. Just give me a summary. Let's go with Iliad first. Let's go with Iliad first. Tell me about the synopsis and the main characters and their roles. Below is a clean, structured overview of Iliad synopsis first, then the main characters and what it does. Important: Iliad does not tell the whole Trojan War. It covers only the few weeks in the 10th War of the war, focusing on Achilles' rage and how it changes the fate of both Greeks and Trojans. The quarrel. Agamemnon, leader of the Greeks, offends Achilles by taking his war prize, Briseis. Achilles feels dishonored and withdraws from battle, dooming the Greek army. So Achilles is from Greece, right? Zeus agrees to punish the Greeks to force them to realize Achilles' value. The Greeks began to lose. Paris, the Trojan prince, this is where it comes from, the city. Duels Menelaus, but duel is inconclusive. The Trojan hero Hector leads a massive counterattack. Without Achilles, the Greeks are pushed back towards their ships. Crisis and desperation, the Greeks beg Achilles to return. Achilles refuses, his anger is too great. Achilles' closest friend, Patroclus, borrows his armor and goes into battle. Patroclus is killed by Hector, the Trojan hero. Dude, tell me the characters first. Alright. Greeks. A Greek Achaean side. Achilles is a tragic hero. Agamemnon, a king and commander, leader of Greek forces, arrogant, political, insecure. Odysseus, the strategist, not as mighty as Achilles but smartest. Ajax, a fortress warrior, second and strongest after Achilles, huge, powerful, loyal, fights Hector to a draw, represents superior martial strength and duty. Patroclus, heart of narrative, Achilles' closest companion, deep emotional bond, gentle, compassionate, idealistic. His death is the emotional turning point of the entire epic. His loss transforms Achilles' rage into pride, grief, and revenge. Nestor, wise leader, oldest Greek commander, gives counsel and moral perspective, anchor of Trojan experience, and on the Trojan side. Okay, so who was Trojans? There's a C. Hector is the novel's character, Prince of Troy, greatest Trojan warrior, devoted husband, and father, fights for his family city and not for personal glory. Fights symbolizes humanity, human decency, duty, and tragic heroism. His death marks Troy's doom. Okay, Achaeans. Who are the Achaeans and who are the Trojans? Priam, king of Troy, wise or ruler, acts as a moral counterbalance to fight the brutality around him. His night visit Achilles is one of the greatest scenes in ancient literature. His night visit, right? Paris, the cause of war, Prince of Troy, who abducted or eloped with Helen, handsome but cowardly, contrast to Hector's bravery. Aeneas, survivor and future founder, Roman myth, lesser Trojan prince. So he's the brother. He's Hector's brother. Aeneas, survivor and future founder of Roman myth. So lesser protected by the gods because he is destined to escape and found a new people. Later becomes the hero of Virgil's Aeneid. Aeneid? Helen, the face that launches Helen ships. Cause of the war, complex figure. Guilt, regret, beauty, and power represents tragic cost of desire and conflict. The gods who behave like superpowered humans. So these are like physical humans walking around, right? King of the gods, balances fate. Hera, supports Greeks out of hatred for Troy. Athena, Greek supporter, wisdom in war. Apollo, Trojan supporter, plague bringer. Aphrodite, protects Paris and Helen. Ares, god of war. God of war, that's Ares. The game. The gods represent externalization of eternal emotions, fate, and inevitability. The ancient view of the world as divine and chaotic. Summary of their roles in one sentence. Achilles is rage, choice, immorality, Agamemnon, pride, and flight. Okay, right now. If you want, I can give you a book-by-book summary of the Iliad, quicker detail, a character map showing relationships. Yeah, give me a character map. Achilles. Achilles heel. I've heard about the Achilles heel. Greek Achaean side. So, is Greek and Trojan like friends right now? Are they allies? Right, so is Troy and Achaeus enemies or allies right now? They're absolutely enemies. They're at all out. Oh, they're at war. Okay, now we can go into the summary. They are besieging the city of Troy. The Troy and his allies are fighting to defend the city. They have been enemies for 10 years by the time. Alright, now let's get to the brief summary of the entire thing. Give me a brief summary in one paragraph of Iliad. Tells a story of the final weeks of the Trojan War, focusing on the destructive rage of Achilles after Agamemnon dishonors him by seizing his war prize. What is this? Briseis? He's a character. Achilles withdraws from battle, causing Greeks to suffer heavy losses as the Trojan hero Hector drives them back. When Achilles' beloved companion Patroclus is killed by Hector, Achilles' grief turns into unstoppable fury, where he returns to the fight, slaughters Hector, and desecrates his body. The poem ends not with the fall of Troy, but with King Priam bravely entering Greek camp to beg Achilles for his son's body. Moved by shared human sorrow, Achilles returned Hector for burial, bringing the epic to a tragic, compassionate close. Alright, so it's a revenge story. It's he gets enraged and then he becomes sympathetic. Tell me the main key events. Quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon. Agamemnon takes Achilles' prize. What do you mean take? Like he marries her? Briseis. Take means as a war prize, a captive woman assigned to Achilles after battle. So he married her, right? And captives. Agamemnon was forced to return his own captive to stop plague by Apollo. Tecumseh himself, he demanded Briseis from Achilles, who were taken from. Why it matters so much? Tragic hero, the war prize symbolized honor. Losing Herman, Achilles was publicly humiliated. Agamemnon was effectively saying, I outrank you, your honor depends on me. This is the trigger for Achilles, right? So he was in love, right? Was he in love with her or something? It was more than just a prize. She is a companion to someone he deeply cares for. So a friend? Affection and tenderness, especially in the moments where Achilles expresses sorrow about losing her. But Homer never explicitly says they're in love, and like the modern couple, it's more like a deep bond between a warrior and his closest companion and concubine who offers emotional comfort in a harsh world. The Iliad values honor, loyalty, and personal bonds in a warrior culture, which doesn't always map neatly into modern romance. Some view it as romantic or erotic, given the intense emotion involved. Others see it as strong emotional attachment. Okay. Alright, key events. Agamemnon takes Achilles' war prize. Achilles feels dishonored, refuses to fight. This is the key event that triggers everything that follows. The Greeks began losing without Achilles. Hector leads the Trojans into a powerful counterattack. The Greeks are pushed back to their ships and almost destroyed. The embassy to Achilles. Odysseus, Phoenix, and Ajax visit Achilles to persuade him to return. Achilles refuses. His anger is still too strong about Agamemnon. Patroclus enters battle in Achilles' armor. Patroclus, in Greek dying, begs to fight in Achilles' place. Achilles agrees but warns him not to chase too far. Okay, so he's saying, go ahead, fight without me and use my armor. He charges ahead and is killed by Hector. Achilles grieves and returns to battle. Achilles is devastated by Patroclus. Who is Patroclus? To Achilles into the story. Close companion and friend. He's a trusted warrior, fights alongside Achilles. Okay. And he dies, and Achilles wants revenge on Hector. Reconciles with Agamemnon, receives a new divine armor from Hephaestus. Death of Hector. Achilles rampages through the battlefield. He fights and kills Hector in a single combat. He drags Hector's body around in Troy in rage. Priam's knife is a king. Priam sneaks into Greek camp and kneels before Achilles. He begs for Hector's body. Achilles is moved, returns it, and they share a moment of deep humanity. Hector's funeral. The poem ends with Trojan mourning and burying Hector. The fall of Troy is not in the Iliad. Okay, so Troy falls. Cool. Tell me about it. Tell me about the tent scene. The camp scene. And what the moment of deep humanity was like. What did they say in the camp? In Book 24 of the Iliad is one of the most powerful moments of the entire epic. It's where humanity, compassion, and shared grief transcends the horrors of war. Achilles just killed Hector in brutal revenge for Patroclus' death. He dishonors Hector's body, dragging it behind his chariot. Trojans mourn their greatest hero, and the war seems even darker. The camp scene. What happens? Priam's decision. The king, Hector's father, is grief-stricken. Guided by god Hermes, who helped him avoid detection, he secretly sneaks into the Greek camp at night. It's incredibly risky and humble act. the enemy camp filled with warriors who hate him. Priam meets Achilles. He approaches Achilles humbly, kneeling and begging for return of the body so he can give his son a proper funeral. He appeals Achilles by reminding him of his own father, Peleus, who was old and vulnerable. Achilles' moment deep humanity, moved by Priam's plea and shared by experience of loss. Achilles feels compassion and empathy. He weeps for his own father and for Priam's pain. Achilles sets aside his rage and hatred, recognizing their common humanity. The ransom reconciliation. Achilles agrees to return Hector's body. They share a meal together as guests, showing temporary truth and mutual respect. This moment highlights mercy and the human cost of war beyond glory and vengeance. So what do the gods do? So are the gods just humans with superpower walking around? Or are they like imaginary or in people's heads, like from the sky? That's a great way to think about it. The gods often behave like humans with superpowers. That's very intentional. Here's how the gods are portrayed. The very human personalities, they have emotions, jealousy, anger, pride, love, favoritism. They argue, deceive, and take sides much like humans do. Immortal and powerful, unlike humans, they don't die. And their powers are far beyond mortal limits. Often meddling, they get involved in human affairs based on preference, grudges, or alliance. So yes, they're like powerful, superpowered humans, gods who look and act like humans, but with dying. So are they like physical beings? Or are they like from the sky, just talking down to people? Do they walk on Earth along with people? Anthropomorphic beings, very human. But do they walk around like humans in the physical world? Yes. They take human form, can be seen, heard, and even touched by mortals. Athena appears to Odysseus and other Greeks often in disguise. Apollo sends plagues and fights alongside Trojans. Hermes guides Priam safely through the Greek camp. So yes, they literally walk around, alright? Well, that's the whole story. That's the basic summary. Alright, tell me the significance of this book. Or tell me some fun facts about this story. Ilium starts in medias res. Story jumps straight into the middle of the Trojan War, not the beginning. We never see the start of the war or the fall of Troy in this poem. The first word is rage. Menon meaning rage or wrath. Achilles' rage drives the whole epic. Achilles' armor was made by God. After Patroclus dies, Hephaestus, the god of fire and metalwork, forgives new divine armor for Achilles, including a spectacular shield described in great detail. The god argue like a family soap opera. The Olympian gods bicker, plot, and take sides and meddle, almost like a divine reality show in the drama, jealousy, and favoritism. The story was originally sung, not read. The Iliad was composed for oral performance, probably sung by bards with the help of formulas and repeated phrases to aid memory. Hector was considered the hero of the people. Though Achilles is the mightiest warrior, Hector is often seen as the most honorable and relatable hero fighting for his family city, not just glory. The famous Trojan horse is not in the Iliad, obviously. The epic was foundational in Western literature. The Iliad was likely composed around 8th century BCE. Achilles was a demigod. His mother, Thetis, was a sea goddess, giving him divine heritage but not invincibility, where his famous heel is from a later legend. Okay, let's go on to the Odyssey. Tell me about... Give me a one-paragraph summary. Here's a concise one-paragraph summary. The Odyssey follows a Greek hero, Odysseus, as he struggles to return home to Ithaca after Trojan War. Facing a decade of perilous adventure and supernatural challenges, like outwitting Cyclops, resisting the siren song, navigating the wrath of the sea god Poseidon. Meanwhile, back home, his wife Penelope fends off persistent suitors vying for her friend, believing Odysseus to be dead, while his son Telemachus grows into a man seeking news of his father. Ultimately, so he has a son. Ultimately, Odysseus returns disguised, reveals himself for cunning strength, and restores the order by defeating the suitors and reclaiming his household. So it's about the Odyssey now. Tell me the key events that happen in the story. The Council of the Gods. Athena pleads with Zeus to allow Odysseus to return home. Meanwhile, Odysseus is he's from Achaeus, right? So the war ends. Where's the Trojan horse? I thought the Trojan horse was going to be in here. Telemachus' journey. Diogenes' son Telemachus sets out to find news of his father, visits Nestor and Pylos and Menelaus in Sparta. Hey, Sparta. Odysseus leaves Calypso. Hermes orders Calypso to release Odysseus. Odysseus builds a raft and sets sail. Shipwreck and arrival at Phaeacians. Poseidon wrecks Odysseus' raft. Odysseus washes ashore on Scheria. Wait, is this where they meet Medusa? I feel like I've heard this before. Like, this is where they meet Medusa, right? Odysseus' story to the Phaeacians. He recounts his adventures. The Cyclones and Lotus Eaters, Cyclops, Orlus and Bag of Wind, the giant cannibals, Sympho's Island, Siren Song, Descendants of the Overworld, Solica, Cattle of Helios, and Destruction of the Ship, return to Ithaca. Phaeacians help Odysseus finally return home, sailing him in secret. Disguised reconnaissance. Athena disguises Odysseus as a beggar. He secretly surveys the situation at home. Penelope begs, besieged by suitors. Reunion with Telemachus. Odysseus reveals himself to his son. They plan to overthrow the suitors. The contest of the bow. Penelope declares she will marry whoever can string Odysseus' bow and shoot through 12 axe heads. None succeed except Odysseus, still disguised. Slaughter of the suitors. Odysseus resumes in the end, and Telemachus and loyal servant killed all the suitors. Reunion with Penelope. Peace is restored in Ithaca. Who are the suitors? As a group of young noblemen in Ithaca, and nearby islands who are planning to marry Penelope, Odysseus' wife, who are the suitors, noblemen and warriors who have come to Odysseus' palace during his long absence, for about 20 years, 10 years fighting at Troy, plus 10 years trying to get home. They believe Odysseus is dead and won't return. They want to win Penelope's hand and gain control. What do? They live off Odysseus' wealth, eating his food, drinking his wine, and abusing the hospitality of his household. They pressure Penelope to choose a new husband, undermining her loyalty. Many behave arrogantly and disrespectfully towards his family and servants. Why are they important? The suitors represent disorder, disrespect, and greed. The breakdown of the household without Odysseus' leadership. Their presence creates a main conflict at home while Odysseus is away. So he comes back, and then they just kill them all. Kills all the suitors. So she was gonna marry somebody who can string Odysseus' bow and shoot through 12 axe heads. So Odysseus, as the homeless man, does it. And then boom, I'm actually your wife, your husband. Okay, so there's no Trojan horse in this entire series. Correct. Trojan Horse is not part of Homer's Iliad or Odyssey. The Iliad ends with Hector's funeral and doesn't cover the fall of Troy at all. The Odyssey mostly focuses on Odysseus' journey after the war, not the war's conclusion. Trojan Horse appears in later myths such as Virgil's Aeneid. Are we going to read that? Yes, we are. Other Greeks and Roman epic traditional plays, later retelling the folklore. Quick summary, we don't want to go there yet. Everything you need to know to read the Odyssey. Okay, tell me. Tell me everything I need to know.
A close encounter with a man-eating giant. A sorceress who turns men into pigs. A long-lost king.
Yeah, I thought that was Medusa.
His throne. On their own, any of these make great stories, but each is just one episode in the Odyssey, a 12,000-line poem spanning years of ancient Greek history, myth, and legend. How do we make sense of such a massive text that comes from and tells of a world so far away? The fact that we can read the Odyssey at all is pretty incredible, as it was composed before the Greek alphabet appeared in the 8th century BCE. It was made for listeners rather than readers, and was performed by oral poets called rhapsodes.
Can we hear it?
Tradition identifies its author.
Can we hear the song?
Polas diptimus psychas abidi proiapsen heroon. Hautus de valoria tu
This is like the Quran.
Hoianui site pasi divos de telea dobule. Vexude ta pro tatiaste.
Very cool, that's what it sounds like.
Author as a blind man named Homer, but no one definitively
Wait, he's
knows
blind?
whether he was real or legendary. The Rhodes. Tradition identifies its author as a blind man named Homer,
He was
but
blind.
no one definitively knows whether he was real or legendary.
Okay, then who wrote
The
it?
earliest mentions of him occur centuries after his era, and the poems attributed to him seem to have been changed and rearranged many times by multiple authors before finally being written down in their current form. In fact, the word rhapsode means stitching together, as these poets combined existing stories, jokes, myths, and songs into a single narrative. To recite these massive epics live, rhapsodes employed a steady meter, along with mnemonic devices like repetition of memorized passages or set pieces. These included descriptions of scenery and lists of characters, and helped the rhapsode keep their place in the narrative, just as the chorus or bridge of a song helps us to remember the next verses. Because most of the tales were familiar to the audience, it was common to hear the sections of the poem out of order. At some point, the order became set in stone, and the story was locked into place as the one we read today.
It's like the
But
Bible.
since the world has changed a bit in the last several thousand years, it helps to have some background before jumping in. The Odyssey itself is a sequel to Homer's other famous epic, the Iliad, which tells the story of the Trojan War. If there's one major theme uniting both poems, it's this: do not, under any circumstances, incur the wrath of the gods. The Greek pantheon is a dangerous mix of divine power and human insecurity, prone to jealousy and grudges of epic proportions. And many of the problems faced by humans in the poems are caused by their hubris, or excessive pride in believing themselves superior to the gods. The desire to please the gods was so great that the ancient Greeks traditionally welcomed all strangers into their homes with generosity, for fear that the strangers might be gods in disguise. This ancient code of hospitality was called Xenia. It involved hosts providing their guests with safety, food, and comfort, and the guests returning the favor with courtesy and gifts if they had them. Xenia has a significant role in the Odyssey, where Odysseus in his wanderings is the perpetual guest, while in his absence, his clever wife Penelope plays non-stop host. The Odyssey recounts all of Odysseus's years of travel, but the narrative begins in medias res, in the middle of things. 10 years after the Trojan War, we find our hero trapped on an island, still far from his native Ithaca and the family he hasn't seen for 20 years. Because he's angered the sea god Poseidon by blinding his son, a Cyclops, Odysseus's passage home has been fraught with mishap after mishap. With trouble brewing at home and gods discussing his fate, Odysseus begins the account of those missing years to his hosts. One of the most fascinating things about the Odyssey is the gap between how little we know about its time period and the wealth of detail the text itself contains. Historians, linguists, and archaeologists have spent centuries searching for the ruins of Troy and identifying which islands Odysseus visited. Just like its hero, the 24-book epic has made its own long journey through centuries of myth and history to tell us its incredible story today.
Welcome to a world of mythology.
I'm just gonna watch Crash Course.
Hi, I'm
Tell
John
me.
Green. Welcome to Crash Course Literature. You can tell that I'm an English teacher because I'm wearing a sweater, but you can tell that I'm the kind of English teacher who wants to be your friend because I'm wearing awesome sneakers. This is actually season 2 of Crash Course Literature. If you want to watch season 1, you can do so over here. It's season 4 of Crash Course Humanities. It might even be like season 7 or 8 if you count all the science stuff. Whatever, let's just get started. We're going to start at the beginning of literature, or at least a beginning of literature. Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story of a man who lets all his shipmates die, lies to everyone he meets, cheats on his wife with assorted nymphs, and takes 10 years to complete a voyage that, according to Google Maps, should have taken 2 weeks. That man is, of course, one of the great heroes of the ancient world. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Odysseus, star of Homer's The Odyssey. Did I just say the odd at sea? It's a good pun. Not in the original Greek, though. Now, everyone knows that you can't properly enjoy a book until you know a lot about its author, so before we discuss the Odyssey, we're going to begin with a biographical sketch of Homer, the legendary blind poet of ancient Greece. What's that? Apparently, we know nothing about him. Well, in fact, we know that whoever wrote them didn't actually write them because they were composed orally. And was Homer even blind? Well, there are some verses about blindness in the Homeric hymns, and there's a blind bard who appears in the Odyssey. But if authors only wrote about characters who were like themselves, then James Joyce's characters would have all had one eye, and I would be an astonishingly handsome 17-year-old. As for the subject of Homer's poems, archaeological evidence tells us that the Trojan War occurred around the 12th century BCE, although it probably included far fewer gods and similes.
So 400 years after this story is written.
In the epics based on it. And again, maybe not. It's not like we have pictures. Anyway, Homer composed the Iliad and the Odyssey in the 8th century BCE, so centuries after the events it describes. And then no one bothered to write them down for another 200 years, which means they probably changed a lot as they were passed down via the oral tradition, and even today there are arguments about which parts are original and which parts are additions. There were a lot of competing poems about the Trojan War, but Homer's were by far the most famous. And they are now the most famous because they were also the only ones to survive the burning of the library at Alexandria. So the Iliad and the Odyssey are epic poems, and we define an epic as a long narrative poem on a serious subject written in a grand or elevated style centered on a larger-than-life hero. By the way, that was an example of dactylic hexameter, just like you see in epic poems. So the events of the Odyssey take place after those of the Iliad, so let's have a brief recap thought bubble. So Helen, the wife of Menelaus, runs off with Paris, a Trojan prince, or maybe she's abducted, it's not clear. Anyway, Menelaus' brother Agamemnon gathers allies and goes to Troy to get her back, but the war drags on for 10 years, at which point everyone is really tired and bored and wants to go home, until things suddenly get pretty tense because Agamemnon seizes a concubine of Achilles, and Achilles gets really angry and says he won't fight anymore, and things go really badly for the Greeks until Patroclus, Achilles' best friend and maybe also lover, it's not clear, goes into battle in his place and does a pretty awesome job until until he's slain by Hector, the Trojans' great warrior, which forces Achilles to reconcile himself with his own mortality and return to the field where he becomes the ultimate death-dealing machine, slaying hordes of Trojans, including Hector, whose body he drags behind his chariot, because that's how Achilles rolls, until Hector's father, Priam, comes and begs for his son's corpse, and Achilles relents, and they have dinner together, and then the book ends with the war still going on and nothing really resolved. And that's the Iliad. When the Odyssey opens, it's 10 years later, and everyone is already back home, except for Odysseus. His son Telemachus and his wife Penelope don't know if he's dead or alive, but Homer reveals that he's on the Isle of Ogygia, imprisoned by the nymph Calypso, who's so hot for Odysseus, even though he spends his days laying on the beach and crying, that she won't let him go. But finally, the gods intervene, and after a series of adventures and a whole lot of backstory, he finally returns home to Ithaca in disguise and kills several dozen suitors who have been drinking all of his wine, eating his beeves, annoying his wife, and plotting to kill his son. And it seems like a cycle of violence is just going to continue on probably forever until the goddess Athena, who loves Odysseus, intervenes and restores peace. The end. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So some of the big questions around the Odyssey are Odysseus's heroic characteristics, the epic's double standard for women, and whether you can ever actually stop a cycle of violence. Odysseus hardly appears in the Iliad, and he's not a particularly great fighter. In fact, he's a pretty sleazy guy. He leads a night raid into the enemy camp and kills a bunch of sleeping Trojans. That's not particularly glorious. But it is typical of Odysseus, who will pretty much do whatever it takes to survive. I mean, his distinguishing quality is metis, which means skill or cunning. Odysseus is smart. He's really smart. I mean, he's an incredibly persuasive speaker, and he can talk his way out of the stickiest of situations, even ones that involve, like, Cyclopses. But he's also kind of a monster of self-interest, and if he weren't so smug and overconfident, he might have gotten home in less than, you know, like, a gajillion years. The best example of this is probably Odysseus's encounter with the Cyclops. So Odysseus and his men land on the island of the Cyclops, and he and several of his guys settle into the Cyclops' cave, feasting on the delicious goat cheese that the Cyclops has hoarded, and then expecting the Cyclops to return and offer them gifts, because that's what you do when someone breaks into your house. I mean, yes, there was an ancient Greek tradition of hospitality, but that's taking it pretty far, and for the record, it's also pretty much exactly what the suitors are doing in Odysseus' house, for which he kills them. So the Cyclops comes home, and he's so thoroughly not psyched about these guys in his cave that he begins to eat them, and in response, Odysseus gets the Cyclops drunk and then blinds him with a flaming spear, which is fairly easy to do because, of course, he only has one eye. Odysseus has given his name as No Man, so when the Cyclops calls out, "No man is hurting me! No man is killing me!" the other Cyclopses don't come to his aid, because, you know, they think there's no man hurting him. It's a pun. It's a blindingly good pun. But then, just when it seems that Odysseus might get away with it, he can't tolerate the idea that no man is going to get the credit, so he announces his actual name, causing the Cyclops to call down curses upon him, which culminates in all of his men being killed. Just as a rule of thumb, you do not want to be friends with Odysseus, and you also don't want to be his enemy. Just stay away. So Odysseus is a trickster and a liar and a pirate and a serial adulterer, and he's responsible for the death of a lot of people, and he also has probably the worst sense of direction in all of Greek literature. But is he a hero? Yes. To the Greeks, heroism didn't mean perfection. It meant that you had an extraordinary attribute or ability, and Odysseus definitely does. It's not for nothing that he's the favorite of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. I mean, she applauds all of his tricks and stratagems, and she encourages us to applaud them too, even though from our contemporary perspective, he's a pretty shady dude. Speaking of contemporary perspective, one of Odysseus's least stellar qualities is his attitude toward women. He's really big on this sexual double standard in which the exact same behavior types women as sluts and men as studs. Actually, the whole epic in general is incredible. Wait, why is my desk moving? Reddit blog wants the Odyssey is that of Agamemnon, the leader of the Achaeans, who returns victorious from the war only to be murdered by his wife and her lover. And then, when they meet in the underworld, Agamemnon's ghost warns Odysseus that he'd better come home in secret because Penelope might try and have him killed too. And the misogyny doesn't end there. I mean, this is a book full of monsters, and Cyclops aside, a lot of them are female, like the Sirens, who lure men to their deaths, or Scylla, who's basically an octopus with teeth. And then, of course, there's Charybdis, a hole that sucks men to their doom. You can explore the Freudian implications of that one over at Crash Course Psychology. Meanwhile, Odysseus sleeps with like every manner of magical lady and nearly marries an island princess, but he assures us that he was always true to his wife in his heart.
It's
Which
Japanese.
is nice, but it would be even nicer if he were true to his wife in his pants. Fan, who is ever the stickler for historical accuracy, would like me to acknowledge that Odysseus didn't wear pants because they weren't a thing in Greece yet, so he wasn't true to his wife in like his toga or his loincloth or whatever. Anyway, even as he's sleeping around, Odysseus is incredibly concerned with whether or not Penelope is chaste. If she isn't, he'll likely kill her. After all, he later executes all the housemaids for sleeping with the suitors, and he's not even married to them. The epic seems like it's building to a climactic scene wherein Odysseus is going to test Penelope's faithfulness, but instead, it's Penelope who tests Odysseus. When he reveals himself to her, she doesn't recognize him. She forces him to prove himself by speaking the secret of their marriage bed, and only then does
Wait, don't they do the arrow thing?
she embrace him in one of the most beautiful lines in all of Homer. And so she too rejoiced, her gaze upon her husband, her white arms round him pressed as though forever. Some ancient commentators believe the poem should end right there, like any good romance would, with Odysseus and Penelope blissfully reunited. But it doesn't. See, Odysseus and a couple of his friends, with a big assist from Athena, have slaughtered all the suitors and the serving maids, and that's a problem because this isn't the Iliad. They aren't at war. The Iliad is a poem of war, and its main concern is kleos, which means glory or renown achieved on the battlefield that guarantees
Homer was an angry dude.
you a kind of immortality because your deeds are so amazing that everyone's going to sing about you forever. Achilles didn't get to go home. He had two choices. He could stay and fight and win glory, or he could go home and live a long and quiet life. In the Iliad, Achilles went for glory. But the Odyssey is about the alternative. It's about what we do after war, how we put war away. Odysseus isn't particularly good at this. He's sort of an ancient example of post-traumatic stress disorder. He's been through so much that he doesn't know how to adjust to peacetime. His response to young men taking over his dining hall and barbecuing all of his pigs is mass slaughter. And the slaughter of the suitors leads to their relatives coming to try to slaughter Odysseus. And if Athena hadn't descended from Olympus conveniently and put a stop to it, pretty soon there would have been no one left on Ithaca alive. And that's a sobering final thought. If it weren't for divine intervention, the humans in this story might have continued that cycle of violence forever. The Odyssey is a poem set in peacetime, but it reminds us that humans have never been particularly good at leaving war behind. Next week we'll be discussing another story with lots of sex and violence and Greeks. Oedipus. Thanks for watching. I'll see you then. Crash Course is made with the help of all
Cool. We're here now. Summarize the significance of these. Wait, hold up. Wait, what? What about the Achilles heel? It was invulnerable except for one small spot in the heel. It's not actually. Oh, that's not from it. According to later legends that Homer Achilles' mother, Thetis, tried to make him immortal by dipping him in river Styx. She healed him by the heel so that the spot didn't touch him and remained invulnerable. During the Trojan War, Achilles was eventually killed by an arrow that struck his heel. So they're using the same character. Later myths and stories use the same Achilles character from the Iliad, but new details and legends Homer doesn't mention. Is the name of the mother the same? Yes, the name of Achilles' mother is the same across later myths, Thetis. So there is no river Styx in Homer's Iliad. So people can just add on to the story, is that it? Okay, tell me about this. Certainly. Aeschylus, the father of tragedy. Significance. Aeschylus is credited with expanding Greek drama by introducing second actor, which allowed for dialogue rather than just choral narration. Theme and style. His plays often explore divine justice, fate, Cool. There's Agamemnon, which deals with blood, vengeance, and establishment, law, and justice. Sophocles, the master of drama and character. Significance. Sophocles adds the third actor, enabling more complex interactions and character development. He focused on individual morality, fate versus free will, and human suffering. His characters face profound ethical dilemmas and tragic consequences. Famous words: Oedipus Rex, the story of fate and identity. No. Antigone, conflict between state law and personal conscience. And Electra. Euripides, the innovator and humanist. Significance: it pushed the boundaries of traditional tragedy by focusing on realistic characters, psychology, and complex social issues. Just tell me what classical education teaches about them. Seen as the father of tragedy who expanded the drama form, I don't really care. Viewed as revolutionary humanizing force in tragedy, his plays highlight psychological realism, social critique, and the questioning of traditional values and gods. Students study how Euripides challenged earlier ideas, portrays flawed, relatable characters, making tragedy modern and accessible. We're just gonna skip this, it doesn't really sound interesting. Aristotle. Poetics and ethics. What it is. Early surviving works of literary theory focus mainly on tragedy and epic poetry. Key ideas define tragedy as imitation of serious, complex action that arouses pity and fear, leading to catharsis, emotional cleansing. Identifies essential elements of tragedy: plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and melody. Emphasizes plot as the most important element. Stories should have clear beginning, middle, and end with a cohesive structure. Introduces concepts like tragic flaw, reversal, and recognition. Significance: influence how Western literature and drama are understood and created, shaping playwrights and critics for centuries. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. What it is: a foundational work in moral philosophy that explores what it means to live a good, fulfilling life. Key ideas: defines the good, often translated to flourishing or happiness, the highest human good. Argues that eudaimonia is achieved through virtue, habitual excellence in character and reason. Introduces the golden mean: virtues lie between two extremes. Stresses the importance of practical wisdom to navigate ethical choices. Explores virtues, both moral, like courage, temperance, and intellectual. Significance: a core text in ethics, introducing philosophy, theology, and political thought through the centuries. In classical education, poetics teach how to analyze and understand literature and drama, especially tragedy. Nicomachean Ethics provides a framework for moral reasoning and living a virtuous life. Together, they represent classical ideal of combining art, reason, and ethics for a well-rounded human education. So is it a story? Or a non-fiction? Why is it in classical literature? Is it non-fiction? Or non-fiction works, okay. So neither poetics nor Nicomachean Ethics are stories or myths, they're analytical philosophical texts. They help understand how stories work and how to live well. Tell me the key philosophies. Tell me the key Tell me the important parts. He says. Sure. Definition of tragedy is imitation of a serious action that is complete and of a certain magnitude. It should evoke pity and fear in the audience to achieve catharsis. 6 elements of tragedy. Plot, the most important elements, the sequence of events with beginning, middle, and end. Character, ethos, the agents who carry out the actions. Thought, themes, arguments, and messages in the play. Diction, the expression of meaning in words. Style and phrase. Song, the musical element, including chorus and rhythm. You don't need music, right? That's an add-on. That's a cherry on top. Spectacle, the visual elements, like you don't need that either, because we have books. Although you do have imagery. Plot structure, to emphasize the unity of action, the plot should be focused and cohesive. Important devices include hamartia, the tragic flaw or error leading to the hero's downfall. Peripetia, a reversal of fortune. Anagnorisis, monochromatic discovery or recognition by the hero. The highest good. Virtue as men. The virtue is about finding golden mean between two extremes, deficiency and excess. Example, courage is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. Moral and intellectual values, moral virtues. Habits like temperance, courage, and justice developed through practice. Intellectual virtues, wisdom and understanding cultivated through teaching and experience. Practical wisdom, the ability to deliberate well about what is good about expedient in life, necessary for applying virtue in real life situations. Friendship and community, Aristotle emphasizes that friendship is essential to a good life. Humans are social beings and virtue thrives within a community. Cool. We're here now. Tell me about this. Virgil, Aeneid. One of the most important epics in Latin literature and wait, Latin? Not Greek? We've moved on from Greek. Virgil, Aeneid, what is it? It's a Latin epic poem written by Virgil, Publius Vergilius Maro, around 29 to 90 BC. This is the legendary story of Aeneas, a Trojan hero and ancestor of Romans, and his journey after the fall of Troy. So, this is during the transition period, right? Going from a republic, or this is when they were an empire. Yeah, summary. After Troy is destroyed by the Greeks, Aeneas leads a group of survivors on a long voyage across Mediterranean in a search of a new homeland. The epic chronicles his trials, adventures, and battles as he struggles to fulfill a divine mission to found the city that will become Rome. Along the way, Aeneas encounters gods, monsters, and various people, including tragic love affair with Queen Dido of Carthage. Carthage? We got Carthage now? Ultimately, he arrives in Italy where he fights to establish his people, setting the foundation for Roman civilization. So it's fiction. It's all in his head. It's like using the Chinese Empire versus the Roman Empire. Aeneid connects Roman history to tragic hero of Troy. Cool. Why is it important? Paid his duty. Aeneas' devotion to the cause, his family, his mission, fate, and destiny, and literally from his founding, despite personal loss and hardship, cost of empire, sacrifices required to build civilization, divine intervention. Gods actively shape human affairs, sometimes aiding, sometimes hindering. Okay, just tell me the key events. Actually, summarize it in one paragraph. What is this about? Escapes the Troy, embarks on a perilous journey, has found his new homeland in Italy. Along the way, he faces divine challenges, tragic love, Queen Dido, fierce battle against native tribes, guided by fate, driven by a sense of duty. Aeneas overcome hardship to fulfill his destiny, and the ancestor of the Roman people, establishing the foundation for the okay. List the key Events. Certainly follow Troy, voyage across the Mediterranean, Aeneas and the followers set sail in search of a new homeland, landing in Carthage, meets Queen Dido, fall in love, but gods remind him of his destiny. Aeneas leaves Dido, heartbroken. Dido curses Aeneas and kills herself. Journey to the underworld, Aeneas visits the realm of the dead, guided by Sibyl, learns about Rome's future. Arrival in Italy, Aeneas lands in the Italian coast and begins to forge alliances. War with the Latins. Conflict arises between Aeneas' Trojans and the local tribes led by King Turnus. Death of Pallas, Aeneas' young ally Pallas is killed by Turnus, fueling Aeneas' wrath. Final battle, Aeneas kills Turnus, securing victory and his claim for the land. Founding of the Roman people, epic ends with promise of Rome's future greatness through Aeneas' descendants. Okay, so not much there. It's some dude's fantasy about the founding of Rome. Cicero's. Tell me about Cicero on duties under Republic on laws. Is it 3 books or is it 1 book? Cicero's key philosophy on duties under Republic and on laws, which are foundational texts in Roman political and ethical thought and importance in classical education. His major works on duties, the offices. When was it written? Date 44 BC by Marcus Tullius Cicero. Wait, Cicero? He's an emperor, right? Roman statesman. Philosopher, orator. So he wasn't an emperor. He was a dude. He was an elite. He was born before the empire. He was born in the Republic. Right? On Duties, a treatise on moral duties and ethical behavior, written advice to Cicero's son, key themes: nature of the good, honorable and useful, how to balance moral virtue with practical benefits, emphasizes justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance as cardinal virtues, argues that doing one's duty is essential for personal integrity and social harmony, signifies the foundational work in ethics, influencing later Christian and secular moral philosophy. On the Republic, purpose: a dialogue on justice, ideal government, and nature of the state. Key themes: discussion of the best form of government, emphasizing mixed constitution, combining monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy, idea that the common good as the goal of political life, the importance of rule of law and citizen virtue, introduces a famous dream of Scipio, exploring souls and morality and cosmic order, ideas of republicanism, constitutional government. On the laws. Key themes: law should be rooted in natural law and reason, reflecting universal justice. Examines the relationship between law, morality, and custom. Advocates for law that promote virtue and social order. Significance: importance for the different natural law and legal philosophy and Western thought. Tell me about on the Republic and what he says about the ideal government, or and arguments. All right, bathroom. Cicero argues the best government is a mixed constitution that combines monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. And this was written in 100 BC. The common good as a goal. The goal of government is the common good. not the interests of rulers of factions. The laws and policies that aim for justice and welfare for all citizens. Rule of law and justice. Governments be based on law, not arbitrary will. Justice is the foundation of the republic. Without it, state falls into chaos. Citizen virtue and participation. The health of the republic depends on virtuous citizens who uphold justice and as common good. Active participation in public life and adherence to duty are essential. Mixed. Against tyranny, absolute power corrupts. Monarchies without checks and balances, despotic. Against pure democracy, rule by solely the masses can lead to disorder or mob rule. Against pure aristocracy, rule by elites alone risk opposition of the people. Balance for moderation and mixed constitution incorporates the best parts of each. Create stability through moderation. Nature of law, governments and knowledge should conform to natural law, reflecting universal principle of justice. The dream of Scipio, is the famous part. In the Republic, Cicero includes a cosmic version of Scipio Africanus. Roman general sees the universe order and the soul's immorality. The vision emphasizes the moral responsibility of rulers and eternal significant justice. What would he think about America Constitution today? Mixed government structure, sets up a system of checks and balances, separation of power reflects Cicero's idea of a mixed constitution balancing different powers to prevent tyranny. Rule of law and written laws establishes the rule of law, where even the leaders must follow, something he strongly advocated. Laws are clear, written, and designed to promote justice and common good. Protection of rights and popular sovereignty. It includes democratic elements, ensuring citizens' participation, which Cicero saw as essential. The Bill of Rights protects individual freedoms, aligning with Cicero's emphasis on justice and virtue. Emphasis on civic virtue, though implicit, the Constitution assumes a citizenry capable and reasoned participation in public service, echoing Cicero's belief in the need of virtuous citizens. Possible Cicero-style critiques, potential factionalism, worried about political factions that are in common good. He might caution the U.S. about partisan division and special interests that can obstruct justice and unity. Balance of power vigilance. He might stress the importance of continually maintaining the balance between branches to avoid creeping authoritarianism and legislative overreach. Overall, he would admire the U.S. Constitution as a modern realization of his mixed ideal of a mixed law-based government aimed at common good, but he reminded Americans that the success of any republic depends on the virtue of citizens and leaders. What would he think about Chinese Constitution today? Great question. Lack of mixed government and checks and balances, rule of law versus rule by party. The emphasis of government should be based on rule of law, not arbitrary will. The CCP system prioritizes party authority and control over the legal system, which might strike Cicero as undermining justice and fairness, common good, and citizens' participation. Cicero valued government serving good common good with active citizen virtue and participation. The CCP Constitution is focused on party leadership with limited political pluralism, and restricted public political participation could affect Cicero's ideal of a republic rooted in citizen engagement and virtue. Virtue and morality and leadership, while the CCP Constitution talks about social core values and government goals. Cicero would likely emphasize the importance of moral virtue and justice as the foundation of government legitimacy. He might question whether party leadership consistently embodies those virtues. So he wouldn't think very highly of it. Okay. Horus, Otis. Tell me about Horus Otis. Here's a quick summary. One of the works in Latin poetry and classical literature. Who was Horace? Was a leading Roman lyric poet during the time of Emperor Augustus. He is famous for his polished style, wit, and philosophical insights. What are the Odes? Are a collection of lyric and poems in a form classical style inspired by Greek lyrics. Poets like Pindar and Sappho. They celebrate love, friendship, wine, nature, and the fleeting nature of life. It explores themes of seize the day, urges readers to enjoy life's pleasures while being mindful of its brevity. Many odes reflect on the Stoic Epicurean ideas, balancing enjoyment with wisdom. Political and social commentary. Praise Augustus's peace and restoration of Rome, reflecting Horace's role as court poet. Personal life. Often writes about his own experiences, friendship, and simple pleasures. Elegance and craftsmanship. The Odes are celebrated for their musicality, meter, and mastery of Latin poetic forms. Okay. Tell me some things people take away from it. Key takeaways. Seize the day. Life is short and unpredictable, so enjoy a present moment fully without relying too much on the future. The famous theme encourages mindfulness and making most of it now. Balance between pleasure and wisdom, whereas often promotes moderation, enjoying pleasures of wine, friendship, and love, but with self-control and awareness. He blends Epicurean joy with Stoic restraint, teaching a harmonious way of living, acceptance of ways of life's uncertainties. He always reminds the readers that life is fragile and uncertain, fame, wealth, and power are fleeting. Instead of chasing illusions, one should cultivate inner peace and contentment. Appreciation of nature and simple joys. Horace celebrates the beauty of nature and simple pleasures like quiet countryside life or good company. This grounds his philosophy in everyday experience, the role of friendship and loyalty. Many odes emphasize the importance of close relationship and loyalty as essential parts of good life. Political and social reflection. Some odes praise peace and stability under Augustus, highlights the value of order and prosperity for society. So he's basically saying Augustus is doing good, so go on with your life. That's basically it. What does he say about Augustus and political climate he's in? He often engages with the political climate of Augustus' Rome, and his French relationship with Augustus is a key part. He praises Augustus as a restorer of peace. Odes frequently praise Augustus' role, ushering in a golden age of prosperity and order, promotion of Augustine ideals. Horace supports Augustus' moral reforms, emphasizes value like piety, duty, moderation, and harmony, all key to Augustus' vision of a renewed Roman society. The poetry reflects hopeful belief in the revival of Rome's greatness under Augustus' guidance. Political caution and subtlety. Horace's praise is often measured and careful, mixed genuine admiration with poetic subtlety. He avoids direct political polemics, instead of weaving his support through elegant lyricism and philosophical themes, art as a tool for social unity. He sees poetry as a means to encourage social cohesion and reinforce the new political order. His works promote loyalty to the state and the emperor while celebrating Roman traditions, acknowledges Rome's past and future while praising Augustus. He also reflects the fragility of power and lessons of history. This knowledge reminds readers that peace and prosperity require virtue and vigilance. Tell me about this. Lessons of history. He reminds us that fame, wealth, and political power are fleeting. What seems strong today can crumble tomorrow. This is a common theme in classical literature, urging humility and caution. Examples: Roman leaders and empires that fell due to hubris, moral decay, or mismanagement. These historical lessons serve as warnings to current rulers like Augustus and citizens to remain virtuous and prudent. Need for virtue and moderation. Because power is fragile, leaders must practice justice, wisdom, and self-restraint to sustain their rule. Horace's poetry suggests that moral integrity is essential to prevent decline. Balance of optimism and realism. While celebrating Augustus' achievements, Horace does not ignore the risks of inherent in power. His poetry blends hope and lasting golden age with awareness of political personal vulnerability. Why this matters: his reflections encourage leaders and citizens to learn from history, avoid arrogance, and cultivating lasting virtues rather than chasing temporary success. It's a reminder that political power must be earned and maintained through wise and ethical leadership. That's it. Now we go on to Aristotle's logic. Cicero's Rhetoric, Quintilian Institute of Oratory. Aristotle. Tell me about Aristotle's logic. Where do I start with this guy? How do I study him? His logic is a system of reasoning that he developed to analyze arguments, distinguish valid from invalid reasoning, and establish principles for sound thinking. His works on logic were collected and studied and later under the name Organon, instrument or tool. Key components. His most famous contribution to logic is syllogism, a form of deductive reasoning. A syllogism is a logical argument with two premises leading to a conclusion. Examples: all humans are mortal. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. Categories. Aristotle identifies categories or types of things we can talk about, like substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, etc. This helps clarify what kinds of statements or proportions can be made. Proposition and terms. He studied how propositions are formed and from terms and how their truth values can be analyzed. Deductive and inductive reasoning. He emphasized deductive logic, but also from general to specific, but also recognized inductive reasoning, generalizing for particulars. Fallacies. Aristotle identified common errors in reasoning, which helps in critical thinking and argument analysis. Importance. His logic laid the foundation for formal logic and scientific method. It dominated Western philosophy and education for over 2 millennia, until modern logic developed in the 19th and 20th centuries. His system helped us understand how arguments work, ensuring conclusions follow from premises correctly. His logic is taught as a tool for clear thinking, debate, and philosophical inquiry. It trains students to analyze arguments and carefully avoid mistakes in reasoning. Okay, tell me some examples. Give me some examples. Absolutely. This is basic deductive argument with two premises and conclusion. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Conclusion. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Categorical syllogism. Major premise. All birds are mammals. Animals. All sparrows are birds. Therefore, all sparrows are animals. Examples of a fallacy. False conclusion. If the structure is wrong, conclusion doesn't follow. All dogs are animals. All cats are animals. Therefore, all cats are dogs. This conclusion follows because the premise doesn't connect cats and dogs properly. Going from physical observation to general conclusion, I see the sunrise every morning, therefore sun will rise tomorrow. While probable, there's not certain in the same way syllogic deduction is. Use of categories. He would classify sentences like apple is red, quality. Apple is on the table, place. Apple is ripe, quality or condition. This categories helps clarify what kind of claims are being made. If you want, I can. Okay, so he was a debater. He debates. He was a master of debate and reasoning, but more than arguing for the sake of argument, he was focused on creating a systematic way to understand how arguments work and how to distinguish good, logical reasoning from bad, fallacious thinking. Why Aristotle is like a debater, but also more. He studied how to construct valid arguments. He analyzed different types of reasoning. He identified common errors in reasoning, fallacies. He taught how to persuade effectively, but honestly, finding persuasion in sound logic rather than rhetoric alone. Aristotle's role was broader than just debating. He was a philosopher, scientist, teacher. Okay, tell me some of his most important thinkings. I got that. Theory of causes explained why things exist or happen through four causes. Material cause, formal cause, effective cause, final cause. What is the goal, virtue, and ethics? He proposed a good life as well as developing virtue, excellence of character, and achieving eudaimonia. Emphasized the golden mean, where virtue lies between courage, between recklessness and cowardice. Politics and best state. Viewed as humans as political animals naturally living in communities, argues that state exists to promote the good of life and virtue, supports a mixed government, balancing monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy, which we have right now, metaphysics and substance. Explore the nature of being, what it means to be, distinguish substance, introduce the concept of potential and actuality. Empiricism in science. He emphasizes observation and experience as the basis of knowledge, pioneering early scientific thinking, classified living things, and studied biology systematically. So, what is so important about this guy? Like, what is so... Why is he important today? School of Life.
Aristotle was born around 384 BC in the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia,
Oh,
where
he
his
was Greek.
father was the royal doctor. He grew up to be arguably the most influential philosopher ever, with modest nicknames like the Master and simply the Philosopher. His first big job was tutoring Alexander the Great, who soon after went out and conquered the known world. Aristotle
that
then
shit.
headed off to Athens, worked with Plato for a bit, then branched out on his own. He founded a little school called the Lyceum. French secondary schools, the lycées, are named in honour of this venture. He liked to walk about while teaching and discussing ideas. His followers were nicknamed Peripatetics, the Wanderers. His many books are actually lecture notes. Aristotle was fascinated by how many things actually work. How does a chick grow in an egg? How do squid reproduce? Why does a plant grow well in one place and hardly at all in another? And, most importantly, what makes a human life and a whole society go well? For Aristotle, philosophy was about practical wisdom. Here are 4 big philosophical questions he answered. 1. What makes people happy? In the Nicomachean Ethics, the book got its name because it was edited by his son Nicomachus, Aristotle set himself the task of identifying the factors that lead people to have a good life, or not. He suggested that good and successful people all possess distinct virtues, and proposed that we should get better at identifying what these are, so that we can nurture them in ourselves and honour them in others. Aristotle zeroed
11
in
years ago. And he shows Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates was kind of a good guy 11 years ago.
11 virtues: courage, temperance, liberality, magnificence, magnanimity, pride, patience, truthfulness, wittiness, friendliness, modesty. Aristotle also observed that every virtue seems to be bang in the middle of 2 vices. It occupies what he termed the golden mean between 2 extremes of character. For example, in Book 4 of his Ethics, under the charming title of Conversational Virtues, Wit, Buffoonery, and Boorishness, Aristotle looks at ways people are better or worse at conversation. Knowing how to have a good conversation is one of the key ingredients of the good life, Aristotle recognized. Some people go wrong because they lack a subtle sense of humour. That's the bore, someone useless for any kind of social intercourse because he contributes nothing and takes offence at everything. But others carry humour to excess. The buffoon cannot resist a joke, sparing neither himself nor anybody else, provided that he can raise a laugh and saying things that a man of taste would never dream of saying. So, the virtuous person is in the golden mean in this area, witty but tactful. A particularly fascinating moment is when Aristotle draws up a table of too little, too much, and just right around the whole host of virtues. We can't change our behaviour in any of these areas just at the drop of a hat, but change is possible, eventually. Moral goodness, says Aristotle, is the result of habit. It takes time, practice, encouragement. So, Aristotle thinks people who lack virtue should be understood as unfortunate rather than wicked. What they need isn't scolding or being thrown into prison, but better teachers and more guidance. 2. What's art for? The blockbuster art at the time was tragedy. Athenians watched gory plays at community festivals in huge open-air theatres. Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles were household names. Aristotle wrote a how-to-write great plays manual, the Poetics. It's packed with great tips. For example, make sure to use peripeteia, a change in fortune, when for the hero things go from great to awful. In Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio gets Kate Winslet, great, then they hit the iceberg, awful. And Anagnorisis, a moment of dramatic revelation when suddenly the hero works out their life is a catastrophe. But what is tragedy actually for? What's What's the point of a whole community coming together to watch horrible things happening to lead characters, like Oedipus in the play by Sophocles, who by accident kills his father, gets married to his mother, finds out he's done these things, and gouges out his own eyes in remorse and despair? Aristotle's answer is catharsis, which is Greek for catharsis. Catharsis is a kind of cleaning. You get rid of bad stuff. In this case, cleaning up our emotions, specifically our confusions around the feelings of fear and pity. We've got natural problems here. We're hard-hearted. We don't give pity where it's deserved. And we're prone to either exaggerated fears or not getting frightened enough. Tragedy reminds us that terrible things can befall decent people, including ourselves. A small flaw can lead to a whole life unraveling. And so, we should have more compassion, pity, for those whose actions go disastrously wrong. We need to be collectively retaught these crucial truths on a regular basis. The task of art, as Aristotle saw it, is to make profound truths about life stick in our minds. 3. What are friends for? In books 8 and 9 of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle identifies 3 different kinds of friendship. There's friendship that comes about when each person is seeking fun. Their chief interest is in their own pleasure and the opportunity of the moment, which the other person provides. Then there are friendships that are really strategic acquaintances. They take pleasure in each other's company only insofar as they have hopes of advantage of it. Then there's the true friend. Not someone who's just like you, but someone who isn't you, but about whom you care as much as you care about yourself. The sorrows of a true friend are your sorrows, their joys are yours. It makes you more vulnerable, should anything befall this person, but it's hugely strengthening too. You're relieved from the too small orbit of your own thoughts and worries. You expand into the life of another. Together you become larger, cleverer, more resilient, more fair-minded. You share virtues and cancel out each other's defects. Friendship teaches us what we ought to be. It's quite literally the best part of life. 4. How can ideas cut through in a busy world? Like a lot of people, Aristotle was struck by the fact that the best argument doesn't always win the debate or the battle. He wanted to know why this happens and what we can do about it. He had lots of opportunity for observations. In Athens, lots of decisions were made in public meetings, often in the agora, the town square. Orators would vie with one another to sway popular opinion. Aristotle plotted the ways audiences and individuals are influenced by many factors that don't strictly engage with logic or the facts of the case. It's maddening, and many serious people, especially Plato, can't stand it. They avoid the marketplace and populist debate. Aristotle was more ambitious. He invented the art of what we still today call rhetoric, the art of getting people to agree with you. He wanted thoughtful, serious, and well-intentioned people to learn how to be persuasive, to reach those who don't agree already. He makes some timeless points. You have to recognize, acknowledge, and soothe people's fears. You have to see the emotional side of the issue. Is someone's pride on the line? Are they feeling embarrassed? And edge around it accordingly. You have to make it funny because attention spans are short, and you might have to use illustrations and examples to make your point come alive. We're keen students of Aristotle. Today, philosophy doesn't sound like the most practical activity. Maybe that's because we've not paid enough attention recently to Aristotle.
What does he say? What does he say on politics? Great. His views on politics are some of the most influential. Monarchy. One ruler, good for common good. Governs for common good. Good, if just. Tyranny is one ruler, is self-interest. It's a corrupt form of monarchy. Aristocracy. We've had this debate like 1,000 years ago, right? With Darius in Persia. He classifies government based on who rules and whether they govern for the common good or self-interest. He favors mixed government, called polity, and balances the element of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy to prevent corruption. Rule of law. He emphasizes that law should govern, not individuals, because laws are more impartial and just. The best government is where law rules for the common good. Role of the middle class. He argues that a strong middle class is crucial for political stability and good governance. The middle class is less likely to pursue extremes and more likely to support moderation and justice. Citizenship and participation. Citizenship is active participation and deliberation and decision-making in the polls. Virtuous citizens who participate in public life are essential for a thriving state. Education and virtue. A state must promote education and moral development so citizens can cultivate virtue and contribute to the common good. Aristotle's politics centers on the idea that the purpose of government is to cultivate virtue and the good of the good life, that political systems must be balanced and governed by laws, and that citizens' participation and a strong middle class are vital for stability. Still true. What happened to our middle class? We need our middle class back. Okay, tell me about Cicero. We kind of did Cicero, right? How to manipulate people's emotions. Cicero's miserable public speaking. What did he say? 3 types of speeches: deliberate, forensic, epithetic, praising for blaming someone. 3 means of persuasion: ethos, pathos, and logos. Logical, emotional, and credibility of a character. Pathos, emotional appeal to the audience, and logical argument and evidence. So ethos would be something like Professor Bob said that men can't become women, therefore I'm gonna agree with him. And then pathos would be, how dare you say that? Of course man should become woman. And then logos would be like, you can't become a woman because we're just biologically that way, right? Yeah, I kind of learned this in school. The ideal orator believes that the best orator combines wisdom, moral integrity, and eloquence. Persuasion is not just technique, but also involves speaker's virtue and sincerity. Audience awareness. Understanding audience values and beliefs as an emotion is crucial. Effective rhetoric adapts to the audience's needs and context. Okay, cool. I kind of learned about this in school. Alright, what else about them? Ethos, pathos, logos. Cool, cool, cool. What's his most important? What did our founding fathers take away from Cicero? Influenced by writings, Republican ideals, and mixed government. Cicero's vision of mixed constitution inspired the founding's designs and checks and balances and separation of power in the U.S. Constitution. They admired Cicero's emphasis on the common good and civic virtue as the foundation of a stable republic. Rule of law and justice. Cicero insists laws, not individuals, should govern, deeply influenced the founders' commitment to constitutional government and the idea that rulers are bound by law. Civic virtue and moral character. The founders believed a successful republic depended on the virtue and wisdom of its citizens and leaders, the direct echo of Cicero's emphasis on moral character as essential for public life. Rhetoric and persuasion. His teachings on effective, ethical rhetoric shaped the founders' understanding of political discourse, debate, and public persuasion, skills essential for political leadership and democratic deliberation. Figures like Jefferson, Adams, and Madison studied Cicero's works to craft persuasive arguments for independence and governance. Natural rights depended on natural law as universal, divine law that underpins human laws and rights, contributed to the founders' concept of inalienable rights and the moral foundation of the government. Importance of history and traditions. His respect for Roman Republican history and traditions encouraged the founders to draw on classical examples. Cool. Examples. John Adams called Cicero the greatest orator that ever lived. James Madison echoed Cicero's warnings about factionalism and need for balanced government in the Federalist Papers. The language of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution often reflects Cicero's blend of legal reasoning, natural law, and Republican ideals. In short, founding fathers saw Cicero as a model for how to build a just, virtuous republic rooted in law, balanced government, and active participation of virtuous citizens. We kind of already read about him. Cicero, duties on the republic on laws. Yeah. And they said active participation. Here's a quick, concise summary of this guy. Who is this guy? Does anybody know anything about this guy? I don't see any YouTube videos. Oh. Quintilian's Institute of Orality? What is it? Institute of Orality is a comprehensive 12-book treatise written by Roman rhetorician Quintilian. It serves as a manual for training the ideal orator, covering everything from early education to the art of persuasive public speaking. Quintilian defined the ideal orator as a person of good moral character and eloquence. He stressed that oratory is not just about clever speech, but about integrity, wisdom, and service to justice. Education and Development. The work details the entire process of educating an orator, stating from early childhood through advanced training. It emphasized the importance of reading, writing, memorization, imitation of writing models, and practical exercise. Quintilian builds on earlier ideas, like Cicero's, about stages of crafting speeches: invention, finding arguments, arrangement, style, memory, delivery, moral and ethics foundations. Unlike some who separated rhetoric from ethics, Quintilian insists the orator must be virtuous. Rhetoric without morality is dangerous. Oratory should aim to serve truth and justice, not manipulate or deceive. Practice advice on oratory covers techniques for persuasion, use of emotions, clarity, and audience adaptation, includes guidance on forensic, legal, deliberative, political, and epidictic ceremonial speeches. Influence and Legacy is a work shaped medieval and Renaissance education, influencing how rhetoric and public speaking were taught in Europeans for centuries. I don't know. 12-book treatise, comprehensive guide, rhetoric education. Cool. So the whole point is, if you want to persuade someone, you gotta be a good person too. Right? That's pretty much it, right? Just be a good person. Go on to John Locke next. And that's pretty much it.